So I've been using the Galaxy S25 Edge sort of on and off lately. The Fold 7 came out, which kind of took away my interest from this phone, and it's been sitting in a drawer ever since, but I never actually made a review about it. The thing is, the Edge is not a phone that really piqued my interest when it was announced. I mean, I personally don't really care that the phone is slimmer. I'd much prefer a larger battery, which this doesn't have at only 3,900 milliamp hours. I would have much rather had faster 45-watt charging like on the Ultra, which this also doesn't have at only 25 watts. And while I do think the 200 megapixel camera is a fantastic start, not having a native telephoto lens is enough to make me want to pack this thing up and forget about it entirely. Or at least that's what I would have said without putting this thing in my pocket, but now that it's actually been used, well, where does it stand? Before we get into it though, a like and a sub to the channel is always appreciated. I just want to say, thank you so much. We are pushing close to 70,000 subscribers, which is just absolutely insane to me. I can't believe that one day there could be a plaque sitting on the wall behind me. Y'all are actually the best and you've been killing it, so thank you so much for the love. But anyways though, you know that whole you need to pick this thing up and see it for yourself sort of like talking point that's been regurgitated by everyone, including myself? The thing is, on the Edge, that's actually true. Point blank, on video, you can't really get a grasp on how comfortable or how small this phone actually is. And I think that that does some injustice to this device right out of the gate. Now, it's 5.8 millimeters thin, and it is super durable with a titanium frame, just like the Ultra. And because the phone only weighs 163 grams with a really respectable 6.7-inch display, not only are you not giving up really anything in terms of screen real estate, but it takes away those pain points that usually come along with having a larger screen. Like, I have small hands, okay? I don't exactly know what that says about me. But when it comes to the Edge, this for me is a one-hand all-day type of phone. Whether I'm scrolling, typing, or whatever, I don't have to do that awkward dance that I normally do when I'm using the S25 Ultra. And that's something that I actually really appreciate with this phone. Mind you, the display isn't small. Like I said, it's 6.7 inches. It's only a touch smaller than the S25 Ultra. And realistically, it does fit the same amount of content, whether it's a web page or app that you're viewing. The only difference really is just going to be how big the video playback is, and honestly, it's a pretty marginal difference between these two devices. And before we actually dive more into like the specs and my experience with the Edge, I do want to make a point pretty clear. A lot of people just say, well, what's the point in the phone being thinner if I'm going to put a case on it anyways? And they write off this device entirely. Fair, but the overall footprint with a case is still going to be as small or smaller, depending on the case of course, than something like the S25 Ultra. Now, I've opted against using one because this thing to me is like the perfect size, but honestly, if you were planning on using this device with a case, it is still going to be smaller, so that argument doesn't really make any sense to me. Now, the Edge does have some fantastic specs. I want to run you through some of them before we sort of take a turn and I tell you that this phone might not be for you. So it's using an AMOLED 2X display, which is 120 Hz with HDR10 Plus support, and it's a 1440p display. It actually has a higher pixel density than the S25 Ultra at 513 pixels per inch, so it's insanely sharp. Also, Samsung claims this to be a 2600 nit peak display, meaning that it should be very bright outdoors, but we'll get to that. It's also rocking the Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is insane in a phone this thin, and it has a 200 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, unfortunately, as well as the 12 megapixel selfie camera, which can be used for face unlock. It also does have that ultrasonic fingerprint reader inside of the display if that is something that you prefer. But the specs on paper are one thing and how it actually holds up is another. And while I was surprised with the Edge in some areas, there were also some areas in this phone that I felt like heavily disappointed in, like the display brightness, for example. It was measured by GSM Arena to be around 1416 nits, which is a lot lower than the original 2600 nit Samsung claim. Now, on top of that, despite this phone being positioned as like an ultra premium average Joe phone, it's missing the anti-reflective display, which still for some reason is only available on the S25 Ultra and S24 Ultra. So not only do you get a phone that isn't as bright, so it's harder to see outdoors, but in those harsh lighting conditions, it's very hard to see at times due to how reflective the display is. And the phone also just gets quite hot when you are actually outside. And I think that that's purely just because there's less in the way of heat dissipation because of just how thin this phone is. But let's add this up here. The phone's not as bright, it's harder to see, it gets hot outdoors, especially in the summer right now, and all of that equals up to being a worse battery experience, which wouldn't be a problem if the phone had a typical sized battery, but at 3,900 milliamp hours, it's very easy to kill this phone. Very, very easy. When I was at Samsung Unpacked in New York, I actually planned to do a day in the life with this phone in Manhattan, but ultimately I just didn't find the time to be able to do it, so I decided to just give that video a rest. I really wish I did that though, because I really wish I could have had my camera on me talking you through the experience that I had with this battery life while I was down there. There was one day, it was like 30 plus degrees Celsius. It was hot, but by the time I was like out of the hotel, had spent some time walking around in the morning, was in the Uber and on the way to Manhattan, it was only like 10:30. The phone had drained like a significant amount, which honestly, for me, being in a place that I need GPS for, a place that I've never been to, it was very like anxiety inducing knowing that I could actually just be stranded, not able to call an Uber, not able to contact anyone. I don't know. It was kind of worrisome, to be completely honest. It ultimately led me to having to run this phone in battery saver the entire time that I was on the trip. So I was limiting myself to 60 Hertz. I was limiting myself to a lower display brightness and in dark mode, and the performance was honestly just not that great because of it. Now, on the other hand, if this phone had say 45 watts or 60 watt charging, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because it'd be really easy to top it up. But with the 25 watts, it's honestly just very oddly balanced. Less battery life, slower charging, it's just not ideal for me personally. Aside from those issues though, albeit they are very large issues, I really do think that the Edge is a phone for some people. Like my mom, for instance, she's still using, I think, an iPhone 12. Something like this would have a better camera, it'd have a better display. I'm not sure about the battery life, but it would be nice for her. It's something that she could just tuck into her purse. It's very thin, and it's also just like a nice, like classy looking phone. Not that that matters for a lot of people, but like point is that if you're looking for like a premium phone, but you don't need a lot, this is a very premium option. But if you're someone that purchases the Ultras or the Pro Maxes or the XLs and you care for those pro level or prosumer features, I think other than the shock factor of how thin and light this device is, which will wear off, believe me, it would be a downgrade in a lot of areas. Most notably, like this one night, which still really is like a punch in the gut because I wish I got good photos of this. But we were on a boat tour in New York and we were going by the Statue of Liberty. I think that the Edge's pictures looked good. I just know that if I had my Ultra on me, I could have taken way nicer photos, especially with that 5x telephoto, that I probably would have edited nicely and have been able to put up on the wall over there with some of the photos from my other trips. So while the 200 megapixel main camera looks nice, and it does have a decent looking crop at 2x despite it being digital, I do personally feel like a lot with the Edge is missing here, and it's a little too much for me not to notice when using this device. So for that reason, I'm out. No, but all seriousness, this is a good phone. I think it's really only for like a niche group of people. This is not something that I think like I can review with my bias or preference toward other devices and give you guys like a tally of how I think the experience is, because I'm not the target demographic for this device. I think a lot of you watching might not be, unless you're specifically searching this video out to find information on the Edge. And if you're someone that doesn't use your phone a lot, has like limited bag space, doesn't really care about like the camera or telephoto, or you know, you don't really use your phone when like you're out on like a bright summer day because you're a normal person and you like to like read a book or sit outside and enjoy the weather, then this phone is a good choice. But at $1,100, I don't think that I can comfortably recommend this phone as much as I want to based on the design and the engineering behind it, because for what you're getting, it really does seem like a huge miss. Anyways though, thank you all for watching this one. A like and a sub to the channel is always appreciated. By the way, let me know if you agree with me or not. I feel like every video someone has something to say, but I like to see people counter my points and like my recommendations and stuff, so have at it. If you've watched all the way through, consider dropping a shark emoji so I know who the real ones are. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.